Welcome to another episode of HalfPint Cooking, and this is the beginning of our cookie series. We are going to do different kinds of cookies for the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. And this is a special cookie that I have discovered, and it is a coconut cookie, and they're so good. I don't know if you guys like crunchy cookies or soft cookies, but these ones are soft and they are amazing. My husband, who doesn't even like coconut, actually likes these cookies. So, first thing that we need to do is you need to make sure that your butter is soft. This has been sitting out all morning, and it's what, like almost 3 o'clock, and it's been sitting out all day, so it's really soft. And we need to turn our oven on to 350 degrees to preheat it and get it all warm. Oh, Jane, you wanted to open the butter. Can you open the butter and put it in the bowl? So there's a few things with cookies that people struggle with, and one of the key things is to always have soft butter. Don't melt the butter unless it specifies in the recipe. I do have a recipe that likes it melted, but other than that, just make sure it's soft, not melted. So we're using our Bosch mixer today with our paddles in it. You don't want to use the whisk, and you don't want to use the bread thing. So this is the one you're going to use. And if you don't have a Bosch or a KitchenAid, use your other brand that you have, or you can use a hand mixer if you really need. We have 1 cup of butter, so that's 2 cubes, and we're just gonna mix it. So cookies, generally you wanna beat the butter. This is pretty basic in all cookie recipes, is you beat the butter first and then you add the sugar. We're gonna add 1.5 cups of sugar. Can you measure it out? Fill that whole thing up with the sugar. That's 1 cup, and we need 1.5 cups. So there's a 1/2 cup. Will you fill that one up? Like in most cookie recipes, is you do the butter and then you put the sugar in and you mix it again. This might explode a little, so we need our lid. Okay, put our lid on. We don't want all that sugar flying up. We're gonna, oh, our oven's ready. We better hurry. Now we're gonna add 1 egg. Okay, we're gonna turn it off and we're gonna scrape the sides. Now we are going to add some vanilla and coconut extract. You can use extract, or this is an emulsion, and you don't need as much of it and it doesn't evaporate as much, and so it's specifically for baking. We're gonna use a teaspoon of both of these. I want to show you this cool new teaspoon measuring cup. Isn't that cool? It has 4 different sizes. So there's a full tablespoon, and underneath is a full teaspoon. And on this side is a 1/2 teaspoon, and on this side is a 1/4 teaspoon, and it's just in one piece. This comes from Bosch. I got this at my local Bosch store. So we're gonna put a teaspoon of this coconut emulsion, and we're gonna put a teaspoon of vanilla. Actually, we're gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla.
Oh, that's cool.
Isn't that so cool? Such a cool measure. And then you only dirty 1 thing. We're gonna turn it on and mix it just a little bit. Now we're gonna add our flour. Now, if you guys remember how to measure flour, you use a spoon and a knife to measure it. Yes, of course. Okay, I'm gonna show you how to measure. So we just do 1 spoonful. Okay, I'll do 1 and then you're gonna do 1, okay? So we need almost 3 of these. Want it to go over. See how it's full?
Yep.
Then we get a knife, tap it like this, and then scoop it up.
Whoa!
It's like magic. Okay, your turn. Okay, now we're gonna do 3/4 of a cup. So 2 3/4 cups. We're not gonna have to scrape this one. In this measuring cup, I have a line where it tells me where 3/4 of a cup is, and so that's what I'm doing. We're gonna need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So I keep my baking soda in here, because like I can just scrape it off the top.
Whoa.
Okay, you wanna put it in? Okay, remember, we wait till we're over the bowl and then we flip it over. Okay, now flip it over inside the bowl. Good. Then we need a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. We're just gonna use the lid to scrape that off, and we're just putting it directly in the mixing bowl, and then we're gonna mix it up, just like that. Okay, now we're gonna mix it again. So I do want to point out, the reason I didn't use this again is because it's wet, and if we add dry baking soda or baking powder to the wet, because it's moist in here, then it's gonna stick. And so that's why we ended up using a different set of measuring spoons. Now we're gonna add 1 cup of coconut. Do you wanna fill this up with coconut? Just dump it in, carefully. There we go. Do you wanna pour it in the cookies? Put it in. Remember, wait until you're over the bowl and then you dump it. Okay, now we're gonna turn it on. Okay, so we're scraping the sides so it all gets mixed again. And we're almost done. Okay, now this cookie recipe isn't gooey and sticky like some cookie recipes. Let's hurry up and clean up our mess and then we can scoop them up, okay? Okay, so you can make these into small little balls if you want to use a small one, and they're delicious and they really stay soft. I like to make big ones.
Well, can I try?
And then you just plop them on. Okay, yep. You're gonna do the rest. Now, one thing I do like to do with these is I like to freeze. I like to make a whole bunch of cookies and then I freeze them. But I freeze them on the sheet pan and I layer them and I freeze them and then I put them in a bag after they're frozen. And then when I'm ready, I can pull out different kinds of cookies and I can have a whole bunch of cookies at once. So that's one thing that I like to do. So this is a number 20 scoop. We use it for a few different things, or it's a 2 tablespoon one. But you can just look under because all of these scoopers have different numbers. So that's a 20, and I really like them because they squeeze on both sides instead of the thumb, so it doesn't hurt your thumb. Now we're gonna bake it at 350 degrees for 10 minutes. Ready? So if you do these from frozen, you're gonna bake them at 325 degrees, and it's gonna take 15 to 18 minutes. Okay, so our cookies just came out of the oven. They're still hot. I have them on a cooling rack so that the air can flow in and out and it can cool down a little faster, but this is what they're supposed to look like. So they did grow a little bit together, which is still fine because they were so big. So they're nice and fluffy, and we're gonna wait for them to cool down before we eat them, but that's what they look like. They did take about 11 to 12 minutes though. So if they're not ready at 10 minutes, then just keep watching them. You don't want them to look gooey and too moist on top, and that's how you can tell. And they were starting to get dry and golden on the outsides, and that's when we knew that they were ready. So it was more like 12 minutes this time because they're so big. But if you do the small ones, if you do them smaller, make sure you just start with 10 minutes. Thanks for watching another episode of HalfPint Cooking on our cookie series. This is number 1, so stay tuned for next week when we make more cookies. Thanks. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, share these, and make them. Bye.